You're listening to 515, the Ultraman podcast, the show that invites you into the lives of people who make up the Ultra family. Here's your host for these conversations, co-race director of Ultraman Canada, Larry Ryan.
Thanks, MJ. Today I'm going to flip the script, and I'm going to start with our Ultraman Canada athlete profile of Abhay Kelkar. And then we'll finish off with the third and final part of my conversation with the legendary Ultraman announcer, Steve King. I would like to spend a few moments setting up today's athlete profile, as it is following a different format. My guest, Abhay, is from India, and he does not speak English, so he has a translator with him. I will overdub the translator answer with Abhay so that you will hear him in his own voice, but also get the translation. Prabhat, his translator, does add some information to his translations. They are not verbatim. Prabhat is also the head of the Mann Deshi Foundation, an organization that is helping Abhay to reach his athletic goals. I also have a few questions for Prabhat about exactly what this foundation does. Abhay is definitely not your typical Ultraman athlete. He is a milkman in rural India who grew up learning about the environment around him by going into that environment. He shares this knowledge with his own daughters and the students at the Mann Deshi Foundation. The background that he reveals in this conversation will definitely draw you in. And once you know more about this man, you will feel compelled to follow his Ultraman Canada journey and cheer him on to succeed. But before I give too much away, let's get into this conversation. Today's athlete comes from a place and a background that is quite atypical to the usual Ultraman competitor. From his village in Satara in the state of Maharashtra, I'm excited to bring you my conversation with Abhay Kelkar. Hello, Abhay and Prabhat. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you for having us. Appreciate it.
So, Abhay, you are billed as the Milkman to Ironman. What I want to find out is, what was your life like when you were still the Milkman prior to Ironman? Like, how did you get interested in triathlon? What was happening in your life at that time?
माझं बालपण हे
So what Abhay is saying is that he grew up around the village in Satara. So around his villages there are a lot of forests, a lot of streams. And one of his like the best hobbies when he was growing up, to go for swimming in water wells and lakes, get beehives, do fishing, go in the mountains just to spot some animals as well. So he loved the nature life. Now, while growing up, there was a school, but never kind of got into a sporting culture. And when he was older, he was, as he said, like as there is that he was selling milk. So while selling milks, he would regularly start doing short runs. And then somebody told him that, why don't you start, if you're doing short runs, then why don't you go for a half marathons? Then he continued of going on half marathons. Then he did a full marathon. And after doing that, he felt it was very, very interesting because he started like running. And that kind of became his passion. Even though he was selling milks in the mornings, whenever he would get a time, he would start running from the cities. And some people also felt that, is he like crazy or something? Because people didn't know much about running in the area, and everyone would question him. And he says that even he didn't know. He was like, okay, I just like it, I'm running it.
Right.
And then it kind of the dream of becoming a half Ironman was the first goal. Okay, something is different. Because he liked swimming, he could kind of put his interest in it.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, he doing half Ironman and then the full Ironman.
That's the story of all athletes, that, usually they start with one discipline and they enjoy that, and then they move on to the triathlon and move up sprint, Olympic, half, full, and now ultra is the dream, which is just fantastic. Prabhat, I would like to ask the next question to you. This interview will obviously be centered around Abhay as the athlete. However, I know that you have played a part in helping him get to be an Ironman, and so has your foundation. So, can you just explain a little bit about your foundation and your connection to Abhay and how that began and what you've done for him so far?
The idea behind starting the organization is never to help athletes to win medal. There are two goals of Mann Deshi champions. Number one goal is that we just don't want our athletes to be an international player, winning medals, being in the Olympics. Of course, if that happens, that's great. But we want them to be a big, good human being, because that's a big aspect of who we are as an organization. And we want to see India, the developing country, to be not just GDP wise powerful or something, but when it comes to gender, when it comes to equality, when it comes to diversity, I think Indian should be on number top. And that's what's the matters. That these are the most valuable core values for us. So that's number one. And then number two is giving opportunity for young girls and boys, especially for the girls, to play sports. We want them to play sports. We want them to be breadwinners of their family, especially young girls. Because in India, you have young girls getting married at the age of 14, 15, 16, 17. Of course, now the rate is going down and down. But still, for example, about 3 weeks ago, I met a girl who got married when she was in ninth grade, forcefully by her parents.
Right.
And then, of course, we helped her to go to the police, do all the things. And then now she's staying with us in our academy and she's getting trained for sports. So some of the athletes have come like this. And that's the goal of Mann Deshi Champions, is that we are providing opportunity to play sports, being a good human. What we do in Mann Deshi is that we provide them from food. We take care of the nutrition part, where we are providing them protein-based diets. We are providing them proper coaching for field hockey, track and field, athletics, swimming, and wrestling. These are the 5 sports we are doing.
Yeah.
We are providing the proper coaching, as well as going beyond that. We also make sure that they get jobs. So we teach them about science, biodiversity. We teach them about astronomy, physics. They know about gravitational waves. They know about how the black hole works. So the idea is to, from history to science, they need to know every single thing. They do debates about LGBTQ. They put the points on those things as well. The reason why, that they need to be aware of those things. But we also make sure that we don't tell them what is right and wrong. We just give them scenarios and they need to figure out what is right and what is wrong. The idea is to make them a good human being. Right now at Mann Deshi Champions, we have about 7,000 athletes working with us across. From majority of them are girls, and that's the whole point. To give them opportunity, to give them dignity, opportunity to earn, so all those things. And we are now starting new programs. Like we have a portable planetarium, which is something exciting coming in August.
Oh, exciting.
And that's the reason why we are doing this, to increase curiosity of children of India, rural India, and imagination. So we are doing that. We have painting courses, we have arts, a lot of different things at our facilities. So it's like a science and sports hub altogether.
That sounds fantastic, and I'm guessing that it's still the case in India, where if you live in one of those rural villages, that you are less likely to get those same opportunities to get an education or to learn some sports.
Yeah, so in some parts, definitely it is. I'll just give an example of that. So end of 2016, so it's about just 3 years ago, I was traveling to a small village where they were a sugarcane cutting family, and they were cutting sugarcane. And you won't believe it, what I witnessed there. So there's a 13-year-old girl who, in a teenage, who was supposed to actually, play sports, go to school. Instead of that, she has never been to a school in her life. She's cutting sugarcane from 4 a.m. in the morning till about 4 p.m. in the evening. So about 12 hours. And it's a tough job, because when you're cutting sugarcane, the sugarcane, there are thorns in it. Then you have venomous snakes. You always have to be alert. You always have to be quick. Then after the cutting sugarcane part, she's not able to go to school. Her name is Nakusa, which means unwanted daughter. So the parents have given her name, which means unwanted daughter, because they wanted to have son. I have heard these names in my community. I've seen this. What struck me was that even though all this is going on with her, she's never been to school, she don't have that many friends, and unfortunately, she will be ending up getting married maybe in 1 or 2 years. But even though after all this, she was playing with a ball which was made of clothes, and she was playing a dodgeball basically,
Oh, yeah.
and she was really happy. So I realized that even 15, 20 minutes of sports can change someone's, just, I'm not saying the whole life. And of course, by giving them sports and giving them opportunities for beginning, there are girls who have changed their lives. Like, for example, there's an athlete we have named Sarita. She's a field hockey captain of the state team. She used to be a shepherd. So she would herd sheep, go with her parents for about 250 miles in a year walking in a search of water. She knew how to track wolves. Today, the same girl, Sarita, is the captain of the national field hockey team. She earned about twice or thrice the family income. So she has that freedom. She's 19. She's not married. Her elder sisters got married when they were 16 and 17. So things are changing, but of course, there are a lot of children who do not still have education, who are getting married at the age of 16, 17. So that's also there. So it's not totally gone, but slowly things are changing.
Abhay, can you tell me a little bit about what it is that your daughter does for sport and how she's connected to the Mann Deshi Foundation?
माझी मुलगी सातारमध्ये असते. मी सातारमध्ये राहतो.
Abhay has two
आणि
daughters. One is
प्रभात
Swara, one is
मसवडला
Tapasya.
राहतो.
So Swara is the
तर
elder
माझी
one
मुलगी
who is in boxing,
एक 2 वर्ष
and
झालं
she is, since last 2
बॉक्सिंगला
years,
जाते
she's
आमच्या
been
इथल्या
practicing
क्लबमध्ये.
boxing
आमच्या
in a
इथल्या
club
क्लबमध्ये बॉक्सिंगला जाते.
in
तिच्याबरोबर
Satara,
मीही बॉक्सिंगला जातो.
Okay.
in the city.
फिटनेस
And of course, Mann Deshi is supporting
आणि
her when
तिला
it comes
सुद्धा
to equipment, shoes, and everything,
प्रभातचं
diet,
पूर्णपणे
and all
सहकार्य,
those things.
माणदेशीचं सहकार्य आहे.
From the childhood,
आणि आता
Abhay has always
माझ्या
wanted to
डोक्यात आहे की
be a
तिला
friend to his
भविष्यामध्ये
daughter
तिचं करिअर
from the
बॉक्सिंगमध्ये
beginning.
घडवायचं.
So as Abhay, when he was growing up, when he went to
मला
the
2
streams
मुली आहेत.
and rivers
थोरली
to
मुलगी
get
आहे
crabs and
ती
fishes
9
and
वर्षाची
in the
तिचं नाव
mountains
स्वरा आहे.
to do
आणि
treks,
धाकटी
small
आहे
treks
ती
and
2
things like that,
वर्षाची. तिचं
he
नाव
always felt that
तपस्या.
his daughter should do the
आणि
same thing, to
स्वरा
get close to the
स्वराला
nature,
सुद्धा
to understand the
माझ्यासारखीच
nature. It doesn't have to
अशी
be that she has
फिरायची
to
वगैरे
like it,
आवड आहे.
but he
रानात
wanted her
वगैरे
to be
मी तिला
passionate
फिरायला
about
वगैरे
those things.
नेतो. असं
So
जंगलात वगैरे
since when
नेतो.
she was younger, he's
आणि
been taking
तिला
her for walks in the
बॉक्सिंगची
parks from
आवड
the beginning, walks
लागण्याकरता
in the
आणि
streams,
फिटनेस करता म्हणून
showing
मी
her how
तिला
to catch crabs,
मंडळामध्ये
how to do
क्लबमध्ये
fishing,
टाकलं.
things
पण
like that.
आता
And
तिला
now he takes her
बॉक्सिंगची तिला
for
आवड निर्माण
forest
झाली.
treks. Even though she's
आणि
9
ती
and
आता
10, she does about
बऱ्यापैकी
1.5
चांगलं खेळायला लागली 2
hours of
वर्षातच.
trekking with him,
आणि
and they go together for
तिचे
the
आणि
trekking.
माझे संबंध एकदम
Apart from that,
मैत्रीपूर्ण आहेत. म्हणजे
she
थोडक्यात ती
she's always
मला
liked
वडिलांपेक्षा
jumping around,
मित्रासारखी
doing
जवळचं
different
समजते.
exercises.
आणि आम्ही दोघं
So now
मिळून
both of
प्रॅक्टिसला
them
जातो.
go together
दोघं
for
मिळून
boxing.
डाएट खातो.
For his
आणि
daughter, Abhay has
काय
also
असेल ते म्हणजे
started
आमचे
doing
एकदम
boxing,
चांगले
because
संबंध आहेत.
then
आणि
one day she
भविष्यामध्ये
told him
तिचं
that
करिअर
I
हे
want to do
बॉक्सिंगमध्ये
that, and that
घडवायचं
was a boxing
असंच
when
माझ्या
she saw.
डोक्यात आहे. आणि तिला
Since then
काहीतरी
they have been
आदर्श
going, and
असावा
then he had never done a
म्हणून मी
boxing
बॉक्सिंग
before, but
करतोय.
he felt that if
अल्ट्रामॅन
I
करतोय.
want my
का तर
daughter
तिला
to do
वाटावं की
boxing,
आपल्या वडिलांनी
then
सुद्धा काहीतरी
I should also
खेळामध्ये
know a
केलेलं
little
आहे.
bit about the boxing
आणि
sport.
तिनं माझा
Yeah.
आदर्श
That's where he thought an idea
घेऊनच
that why don't I do
पुढं
boxing as well?
वाटचाल
And
करावी.
now they go
आणि
together,
तिच्या
they eat diet
भविष्यामध्ये तिनं
together, they
काहीतरी
drink
चांगलं
milk,
खेळामध्ये
both of
करून
them love
दाखवावं
milk,
ही माझी
so they
इच्छा
drink
आहे.
milk together.
आणि म्हणून मीही
That's their favorite
अल्ट्रामॅन
part,
सारखी
and they
गोष्ट
spend a lot of time
करतो.
together.
का
And he
तर
feels that I
आपणच
should
जर का
not be
काही
just her father,
करून दाखवलं
I
नाही
should be her
तर
friend
मुलं
as well.
आदर्श कोणाचा घेणार
So
म्हणणार जर का
she can share
तुमच्या
things with him
घरातल्यांनाच
about
म्हणजे
sports, about
आपल्या
personal life.
वडिलांनाच
And the other
खेळामध्ये
thing he
काही
mentioned
इंटरेस्ट नसेल किंवा
that
त्यांनीच खेळात काही केलं नसेल
he
तर
started
मग
going
ते
to
आपल्याकडनं
boxing not
कुठली
just
अपेक्षा
to
ठेवून
support her,
राहणार
but
आहेत.
of
म्हणून
course
मी काहीतरी
to
करायचं
kind of
ठरवलं
show her that
की
your
असू दे
father is
काहीतरी
also doing
आपण
this
असं
with
करून
you.
दाखवू
For
जेणेकरून
your father is
आपल्याला
always
आपल्या
going to be there
फॅमिलीला
for you
आपल्याबद्दल
to do a
अभिमान
lot of
वाटेल,
things
आपल्या
together.
मुलीला अभिमान वाटेल.
And then the other thing he said that he wants to do boxing with her. He wants to run half marathon, Ironman, so she can be proud of her father. She can see her father as a role model, and also she can tell her all the other friends in the schools and things like that that my father is athlete. He does do boxing with me. And then he was saying that how many of the Indian, like a lot of parents, go together with their daughters to play sports? Not many. And he really enjoys it. She enjoys it, and that's kind of, for him, it gives him a confidence. There is some Marathi word he said. It's like close to confidence. So that's gives him a confidence by going with his daughter.
Excellent. Yeah. So who is the most competitive person in the household?
हे म्हणतात की तुमच्या घरात सगळ्यात जास्त कॉम्पिटिटिव्ह कोण आहे? म्हणजे कॉम्पिटिटिव्ह म्हणजे काय आलं तुला?
अं, अं, तसं तसं
Of
बघायला
course,
गेलं
her
तर
elder daughter, she's really fast and everything,
थोरलीपेक्षा
but when it
धाकटीच
comes to
थोडीशी म्हणजे
competitiveness,
अशी
it's
रानटी.
the youngest
पण
daughter
ती
who's
अजून
2 years
लहान आहे
old. He
आणि
feels that
स्वरा
she's
शांत
because she's
जरी
always
असली
like,
तरी ती ऍक्टिव्ह आहे.
she has
म्हणजे
that
असं नाही
look on her
की
face,
खोड्या करत नाही,
which
पण
shows
ती
that
खेळामध्ये
I'm not gonna
स्पीड
let
आहे
it
तिला
go.
ते
She doesn't
कळतं
do any sport.
की
She's very young,
व्यवस्थित हे करणं
Yeah.
but
म्हणजे
he feels that
आगाऊ
the
जरी
youngest
नसली
one
तरी
is the one
ऍक्टिव्ह आहे ती.
who is more competitive.
Okay. That's very interesting. That's great. Give me a little bit about the area that you're living in and the area that you train in. What's the setup for you? Is there like nice paved roads to go ride your bike on? Do you go to the swimming pool? Is it a lake? How do you do your training where you are in Satara?
अं, तसा सातारा म्हणजे
He's saying that
मोठं खेडेगाव असल्यासारखं
Satara
आहे.
is like a
म्हणजे
kind of
म्हटलं
village
जातं
and
शहर,
town
पण तसं ते
combination.
एक
It's a
मोठं
big
खेडेगावच
village in a
म्हटलं
way,
पाहिजे.
very big.
आणि
It is
रोड
surrounded by
वगैरे
multiple
रनिंग करता
mountains.
आहे, घाट
So
सेक्शन
there are a
आहे
lot of
तिकडचा.
hills,
आमच्या इथनं एक
lot of lakes,
4
lot of
किलोमीटरचा घाट आहे
dams.
शेजारी.
So it's
आणि
fun when
निसर्गाच्या
you're
सानिध्यात
doing
आहे.
running and
म्हणजे
running and
रनिंग करता
swimming.
सगळा ट्रॅक चांगला
He's
आहे.
been
पण
doing
सायकलचं
running
जर का ट्रॅक म्हणायला गेलं
uphill.
तर
Recently, he
आम्हाला
did
हायवेलाच जावं लागतं. ते फार
27K
रिस्क असतं.
run
आणि
like
त्या
3 days
ठिकाणी
ago, like a
माझ्या
mid
बरोबर असणारे
long
डॉक्टर्स
one.
शिकलेले लोक
Hmm.
आहेत.
And so he's
ते
been doing
त्याच्याबद्दल
running in the
ऍक्सिडेंट
mountains,
झाला
and
आणि
it's
ते
a lot of
एक्सपायर
fun
झाले.
to do
म्हणजे
that. And they're
आमच्या
uphill, so
इथं
elevation is
सायकलिंगचा जो
also
ट्रॅक
high.
आहे तो फार
Weather
रिस्की
is
आहे.
also very
आणि
chill. So running
स्विमिंग
has been
म्हणायला
really
गेलं तर
beautiful and
आमच्या
fun.
इथं स्विमिंग टँक आहे,
Swimming, there is a
तलाव
swimming
आहे.
tank,
स्विमिंग
there
करता
is a lake, and there is a dam
भरपूर
as
काही
well.
ऑप्शन आहेत.
So he can do
आणि
long
अशा
distance
पद्धतीनं
swimming, and he's been
आमचं
doing swimming there since the
प्रॅक्टिस
childhood
होतं.
in the
Hmm.
dam and the lake.
आम्हाला
Fortunately,
फक्त
there are no
फक्त
crocodiles. That's what
सायकलचाच
he said. So that's
तेवढा
easy
प्रॉब्लेम आहे.
to
बाकी
swim there.
रनिंगला आणि स्विमिंगला काही अडचण नाही
But
आहे.
when it comes to cycling, that's a big challenge because there are no cycling trails or cycling paths in India. So you have to do cycling on a highway. And Indian highways are not made for cycling or even
Hmm.
actually for vehicles. It's potholes, it's a lot of traffic. So it's big, it has become a big, huge challenge. And
Hmm.
unfortunately, last year, when before his Ironman, last year, he was training just I think 1 or 2 months before the Ironman.
हम्म.
One of his partner, while they were doing cycling, got hit by a truck, and then he passed away. So
Oh, that's
cycling has
terrible.
always been scary and risky because there are no trails and no paths. So that's like a biggest struggle when it comes to cycling.
In Canada, you might see some deer or moose, um, the odd snake or things like that along the way on the course. But I'm guessing where you are and where you train, you might see some other kind of wild animals. Like what are we going to see if we go for a run with you on the trail in Satara?
आता आमच्या इथं प्रॅक्टिस करताना बरेच वेळा घाटामध्ये
So where Satara is,
बिबट्या दिसतो, लेपर्ड दिसतो.
he
आणि
said
जो
that the whole
गेल्या काही
wildlife is very
दिवसापूर्वी
close
आमच्या
to his
घराच्या
heart.
पाठीमागे सुद्धा
And the
गेल्या
whole
3-4
Satara region has always been
दिवसापूर्वी
full with
रात्री 1-1:30ला पोलीस
biodiversity.
आलेले आमच्या इथं.
There's a tiger
त्यामुळं
reserve,
आम्हाला रनिंग
there's a
करताना
leopard
लेपर्ड दिसतो,
reserve, there's a
इंडियन
Indian
बायसन
wild
दिसतो,
bison, which is largest bison in the
किंवा
world. You
छोटं
have
बेकार
varieties of
ज्याला छोटं
snakes.
हरिण म्हणतो
So when he goes for
ते
hiking and
दिसतं,
treks,
ससा दिसतो,
he has
वाघ
encountered
दिसतात.
leopards,
अ, एक छोटा
sloth bears,
एक्सपिरियन्स सांगायचं तर
not a
आम्ही
tiger,
गोव्याला गेलेलो
snakes,
आणि तिथं
deer,
एका
deer,
आमचा जो
deer,
वाईल्ड लाईफचा काम करणारा साहिल
rabbits,
नावाचा मित्र आहे.
things like this when he was
तर
going on
तो
hikes
वाईल्ड लाईफचं
and
24 आवर्स
but
काम
while
करतो.
swimming there are
त्याच्यामध्ये आहे.
crocodiles, but he doesn't
तर
go to the
त्याच्याबरोबर
place
आम्ही
where
गेलेलो
there
वाघाची
are
Smart.
फॅमिली
crocodiles.
पकडण्याकरता.
But
तर
he
आम्ही
has
पूर्णपणे ट्रॅप
rescued
लावलेला
one
3 ते
crocodile
4
when it
दिवस
was
आधी
injured. He
एक
kept it for
खोटं
about
गिराईक बनवून.
2 वर्ष,
आणि
ते
आम्ही
मग
गेलो
दीड
सावंतवाडीमध्ये.
वर्ष होते.
1.5 year, and then
12 ते
recovered
9:30च्या
and then
दरम्यान
kind of released in the
त्या
river.
लोकांनी
But he's
आम्हाला
always been
घेऊन गेले
passionate about
जंगलात
wildlife from the
रानातलं जंगल.
childhood.
Hmm.
And
आणि तिथं
just 3 days
गेल्यानंतर
ago, he
आमच्या
said
गाडीमध्ये एक
there was a leopard behind his house at like 1 a.m. in the night. While not he was not doing any running or something, but there was a leopard just behind his house.
Right.
Now he was giving us an incident which happened about a couple of years ago. He also supports and helps the forest officers for anti-poaching. And so once he got a call from forest officers and the team of forest officers that there is a poaching happening in the next state called Goa of tiger, and we need to go and catch those poachers. They're selling some skin of a tiger or something like that. And then he went with them to Goa by a car, about 7 hours drive. When they got there, forest officers, because when they saw a lot of poachers together, so they got a bit scared and they told him and his friend that why don't you guys go and we'll stay. So they didn't accompany them,
The
but
forest officers
yeah,
did not
forest
accompany them.
no, did not accompany them, and that's very common in India. Things like this happen,
Yeah.
and then Abhay thought, since we are here, let's see, we just go and we'll try to catch those poachers. So Abhay and his friend, they went, they went as a fake customer to buy the skin. That was the whole plan. They went as a fake customer. They had a small, not smartphone, but the small phone. Before smartphone, there used to be smaller phones with no screens, just black and white. They had that phone. They had called the forest officer and put it on a speaker just to hear what's going on. If there's something bad happens, then they can at least call the police. So they did that. They went to get those like as a customer, as a fake customer, and then once the poachers realized that they're not real customers, then they started to have a fight with them. Eventually,
Wow.
they kind of ran away with the skin, Abhay and his friend, and they ended up going directly to the police station. They also got a bit hurt in that fight, but and then they got the people arrested. So that was one of the highlights of him doing this, and he's been always, as I said, he's been always passionate about
Yeah,
biodiversity.
that's a great story. It tells a lot about who he is and what he stands for.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
During our conversation off the air, Abhay expressed that he was a little concerned about the cycling component of the race. As you heard, cycle training conditions for him are extremely difficult. He asked if anyone would be willing to help him virtually with his training for the Ultraman Canada course. Now, listening to his story, I hope there are Ohana members out there who can step up and offer him some advice. In this next section, we talk about the help that he is getting, including a former Ultraman athlete. However, I think he would really appreciate the advice from an Ultraman Canada finisher. If you would like to help Abhay, please contact me at 515ultraman@gmail.com and I will connect the two of you. Obviously, you're getting your help from Prabhat and his foundation for some of your training and things like that. But do you also have some coaches that are assisting you to train you in triathlon and help you to get from Ironman level to Ultraman level?
अ, मला रनिंग
so
मध्ये
for running, there's a
ट्रेनिंग करणारे
retired
एक
captain.
ऑनर कॅप्टन आर्मी
Yeah, it's a
पर्सनल
retired
म्हणून
army
आहेत.
captain
तर
who used to be a
ते
trainer for
माझ्याबरोबर रनिंगला येतात.
army
ते गाडीवर
personnel
असतात. मला
when it
पाणी
comes to
वगैरे
track and
द्यायला,
field
कारण
in India. So
एकदम
he's retired right
हेवी
now. So
डिस्टन्स रन
he's
करायचं
training him for
म्हटल्यानंतर
running. So even it's at like
सारख्या
2 a.m.,
पाणी
3 a.m., whenever they
3-4
start running,
किलोमीटरला पाण्याची
he is
गरज
always
पडते.
there with him.
तर ते करतात.
And it's
आणि
free of
ते
cost, of course. He is passionate about it.
आर्मीमध्ये
It's not that he's
होते त्यावेळेस
charging
ते
him something.
ट्रेनर म्हणूनच होते.
He's always there with
ते
him to
मला
also give
रनिंग
him
म्हणजे
water in the
ते
nights,
रनिंगचं
and
मला
then he's on
पूर्णपणे
a
सांगतात, की
bicycle, like
असं
not a
करायचं तसं
bicycle,
नाही करायचं.
sorry,
आणि
scooter.
सर्वात विशेष म्हणजे
The
Okay, yeah.
army captain is
रात्री
always on the scooter with him, and they start at like 3 a.m., 4 a.m. start because
माझ्याबरोबर रनिंगला
India
ते
is very
सकाळी
hot.
यायला
You
तयार
cannot
असतात.
run
तर
after 9 and 10 o'clock
त्यांचं मला
in the
पूर्ण
morning.
सहकार्य. आणि
So then that's how they start running, and that's how he gets
पुण्यात एक
training from them.
आयर्नमॅन
Then
केलेली,
also there's a swimming
अल्ट्रामॅन
coach
केले
called
त्यांनी.
Chorge.
तर ते
He is there. He's the
मला
one
फोनवरती
who's always
सांगत
been
असतात,
there since his
की असं
childhood.
नाही, असं करा,
Well,
अशा
and he
पद्धतीनं
teaches him
प्रॅक्टिस
techniques
करायला
about
पाहिजे,
short distance, long
मला
distance, how
सांगत
your
असतात.
hand should be, how
आम्ही
you
त्यांचं
should pedal.
मार्गदर्शन घेऊन
So he does
करतो. आणि
all those kind of training
स्विमिंगचं
from
एक आमचे
a
कोच
coach
आहेत, की
called
ज्यांनी
Chorge.
त्याला लहानपणापासून
Right.
Then,
स्विमिंग शिकवलं,
of course,
चोरगे
there is the
म्हणून. तर
Ultraman
ते
trainer,
चोरगे सर
Kaustubh,
आम्हाला
who has been, but also only virtually so far. This is the first time we're gonna go and meet him. We've always done virtual coaching since COVID because uh, it's it's been COVID since the Ultraman thing came.
Right.
So
Yeah.
we always been so we're not able to go and meet him.
Yeah.
And yeah, so these three are coaches, and of course, in next month I'm giving him another international level swimming coaches to train him, and he's going to come and stay in my facility from next month onwards. Right
Oh,
now, because
okay.
there's a lot of course, selling milk is going on now. He started transporting glass in a small tuk-tuk, so he's also
Hmm.
doing that work. But I think from next month he will be stop all the work and just focus on training 24/7.
Okay. Wow. Excellent. It's great dedication. That's amazing. Um, so when you went to Norway to do Ironman, I understand that this is like the first time you've gone on a trip, the first time you went in a plane. So what is that whole experience like for you? Is there a culture shock involved in that? What can you just give us a little bit of how you were feeling when you took that trip?
नॉर्वेला जायच्या अगोदर सगळं प्रॅक्टिस
So
वगैरे
it
व्यवस्थित
was he
केलेलं,
has
कॉन्फिडन्स
not
सुद्धा
even been
आलेला.
to a lot of Indian cities
आणि
before.
मुंबईतून जेव्हा मी पहिल्यांदा प्लेनमध्ये
And then he
बसलो,
said that it was first
तेव्हा
time for him when he
अगदी नाही का,
remembers
की
taking off
प्लेन
the
जेव्हा
plane from Mumbai.
Mm.
हे करत
Told
होतं,
him to
टेक ऑफ
put a
होत होतं,
belt, and
त्यावेळेसच मी
he didn't know why they
खिडकीच्या
were
बाहेर
telling
नाही
him
का
to put a belt.
असं
So he
वळून
was a
वळून
bit
बघत होतो,
scared, like
की
what's going to
खाली किती
happen. I have
दिसतंय,
never
आपण
been to
किती
the
उंचावर
flight
जातोय.
before.
आणि
And
तो एक
then he
वेगळाच
has always
एक्सपिरियन्स होता.
seen
त्यांनी पहिल्यांदा
like how the
सांगितलं
plane
बेल्ट
goes in
वगैरे
there and
लावा.
how
मला
he
भीती
always
वाटली,
was
असं
curious
बेल्ट
to
लावा
see
का
how
म्हणतायत
it will look from the
विमानामध्ये.
top to down.
पण नंतर
So he was
नंतर
just looking,
फार छान
he
वाटलं.
was not sitting at the window,
आणि
so he was trying to
म्युनिचमध्ये
like
आम्ही
move over
गेलो,
to the
तिथं
next
उतरलो.
passenger and see what's going
तिथं
on. So the next passenger was a
म्हणजे
bit
पासपोर्ट वगैरे
annoyed by
दाखवून
that
त्यांना
because he was saying, and then he told
पासपोर्ट
him, "Can I
वगैरे
have a look for
दाखवताना
five,
म्हणतात
ten
तिथं
minutes?"
इंग्लिश
So
बोलावं
that
लागतं.
was the plane
तर ती मला
experience, which was
इंग्लिश
very
वगैरे काही
cool, and
जमत
he
नव्हतं.
really enjoyed
मी
it.
त्यातल्या त्यात तोडकं मोडकं
He was
इंग्लिश
scared in the
बोलायचो.
beginning that how
यस
it will look
किंवा नो
like or
असं
how it will
मी
happen.
बोलायचो.
Would he vomit
आणि
and
तो
things like
वेगळा
that? But that
एक्सपिरियन्स
didn't
होता.
happen.
नॉर्वेला
So he
गेल्यानंतर
was
सुद्धा
happy and he was
कॉम्पिटिशनला मला
really
सर्वात प्रॉब्लेम आला तो
like he
भाषेचा,
was really interested in
की
the whole
मला
flight.
इंग्लिश येत नाही.
And then
तिथं
when he
इंग्लिशच
got out
चालायचं.
at the Munich,
पण
the first
जास्तीत
stop
जास्त
they
मी
had,
आपलं तोडके
and
मोडके
in the
शब्द
Munich
गोळा
he had
करून
to speak regarding the passport control. He had to speak
विचारायचो,
some
की
English,
लेफ्ट
so that was
लेफ्टला
a
जायचं, राईटला
really
जायचं,
tough
या
time for him. So
बारीक
he had
सारीक
to kind
शब्द
of
मला हे
show
करायचो.
them
आणि मी ते
around, and
विचारून
there was I
ते
think fellow
ऍडजस्ट केलं.
passenger who
आणि
helped
फार
him
चांगला
to kind of
एक्सपिरियन्स
at
होता
the passport
नॉर्वेचा.
control to talk about
जसं की
things, and
इंडियामध्ये
then
मी
he
जेव्हा
also never
प्रॅक्टिस
seen
करत
the
होतो,
airports before.
त्यावेळेस पूर्णपणे
So for him,
उन्हाळा होता.
everything was new.
पूर्णपणे
A
उन्हाळा
lot
होता
like
आणि
the way
नॉर्वेमध्ये
airport
गेलेलो,
was so
तर तिथं
clean and
पूर्णपणे
a lot of
थंड टेम्परेचर
lights.
होतं.
So
म्हणजे
that was
एकदम
also kind of
मोठा
interesting for
चेंज
him.
होता
So he was just watching
टेम्परेचरमध्ये सुद्धा.
everywhere and just sitting at the
आणि
airport. He loved
ग्लेशियरचं पाणी
just
स्विमिंगला
that
होतं.
part, just being and
कधी
watching other
ग्लेशियरच्या
people go
पाण्यात मी
around.
याच्या अगोदर कधी
And he
स्विम
also saw
केलेलं
that
नव्हतं.
people were like with
पाणी
small
एकदम
bags
चिल
walking
होतं.
fast.
पण
Because in
वेटसूटमुळं
India, you don't
मला
see
काय
that
फारसा
much.
प्रॉब्लेम
So in
जाणवला नाही.
Europe, I probably because
आणि
he
ज्या
saw a lot of
दिवशी
people walking
कॉम्पिटिशन
faster.
होती त्या
Always are
दिवशी
walking faster.
सकाळपासूनच पाऊस
Oh
होता.
yeah.
आधी
No
थंडी आणि
look, they
त्यात
don't look
पाऊस.
here, there. They
हे
just
कधी
like do their
मी
thing.
इकडे
And
इंडियामध्ये
that
कधी
was kind
अनुभवलेलं
of
नव्हतं
unusual because
थंडीमध्ये पाऊस.
where he comes
आणि
from in
तिथं
India,
थंडी
people
जास्त,
always
पाऊस
like,
जास्त.
come
पण
to you,
एक
talk to
मानसिक
you,
ताकद आणि
and things like
इच्छाशक्तीमुळं
that.
ती मी
And
कॉम्पिटिशन
so
कम्प्लीट
that
करू
was very
शकलो.
interesting. And then when he got to
14
Norway,
तास 27
the climate
मिनिटामध्ये मी
was
ती
cooler,
कॉम्पिटिशन कम्प्लीट केली.
chillier. There was a glacier, water, like every single place there was lakes, huge lakes. And from Oslo, he traveled in a car to where was
Haugesund.
Haugesund. So he traveled in Haugesund, so he saw a lot of glacier water. It was the first time going into the water that cold. He had never swum that cold in his life before,
Right.
but it was good that he had a swimsuit, so that helped him a lot. And then
Yeah.
cycling was a bit challenging for him because he couldn't speak, so he always had a thought: if I get lost, how would I kind of come back to the main route?
Right.
And I'm just adding my words here for some. Like, to be honest, I also felt that, like, because I was there at the day of the competition. I felt that I don't know if he'll be fine with everything. Only thing for us was cycling because we had shown him the route a day before,
Hmm.
and he was already confused there. So that's, and then he said that he saw a lot of sheeps there. So that was very new. So many sheeps everywhere, and it was raining a lot at the day of the competition. So then it kind of little bit, wisel his confidence just a little bit. But then end of the cycling, then he knew it that I'm going to do this. And then he finished the whole thing. And, that was like the best moment for him.
What is it that you hope to get out of coming to Canada and doing the Ultraman?
अल्ट्रामॅन करायचं कारण असं की मी परत
He has
एकदा
passion.
मगातच
That's
सांगितलं
number
की
one.
माझ्या
Number
मुलीचा
two
आदर्श
is
मला
that,
बनायचं
as he said in the beginning,
ती जी
that
खेळते
this is for his
ती
family and
खेळते
his
तर
daughter. He
तिला
wants
आपण
his
जेव्हा
daughter to
उद्देश
look at
करतो
him
की तू असं
as a
कर
role
तसं
model.
कर
He
त्याच्या
wants his
अगोदर
daughter to say that my
आपण
dad
काहीतरी
has
करून
done this
दाखवणं हे
and he's
गरजेचं
very
आहे
competitive and I want to be just like my
त्याकरता
dad.
मला एक अल्ट्रामॅन
So
करायचं
that's one
दुसरी
of the
गोष्ट
major goals. And
फिटनेस
the third thing
आणि
is that
तिसरी
there's
गोष्ट
so
अशी
many people who
की
have done
इंडियामध्ये अल्ट्रामॅन
marathons, half
करणाऱ्यांची
marathons,
संख्या एकदम
and
हाताच्या बोटावर
Ironman as well
मोजण्या
now.
इतकी आणि त्या
But in
लाईनीमध्ये
Ultraman,
मला
he
जाऊन
wants
बसायचं
to sit in
एकदम
there are only
नवीन
9
लोकांनी
people
जे
in
काम
India,
केले
as far as
त्या
we know.
लोकांच्या
But then
लाईनीत
so
मला
he
जाऊन
wants to sit
बसायचं
in those
की
9 first 10
इंडियामध्ये आता
category.
आयर्नमॅनचं प्रमाण
Even in
ठीक
that,
आहे की
all
लोक
these 9
करतात
people who
वगैरे
have done it
पण
are, one
अल्ट्रामॅन
is an
एकदमच
actor,
ठरतं
like a Bollywood
आणि
actor.
मला ते करून
The other
दाखवायचं
one
जे
is
कोणी
like
केलेलं
a very
नाही
well-known doctor. The
जे
other one is
करून
like a very
आपली एक वेगळी ओळख
well-known
निर्माण झाली
government
पाहिजे
high official.
लोकांनी
So all
आपल्याला
of
एक
them
रिस्पेक्टने
have
बघितलं पाहिजे
significant background.
हं.
They're already
आणि
someone.
Right.
In his
एक
case, it's totally
सामान्य
different.
माणसानं काहीतरी
He said,
केलं
I want to be a common
सामान्य
man,
माणसानं काहीतरी
the
केले
man
हे लोकांना कळायला पाहिजे
who
कारण
otherwise
माझ्या
people would
मते
never
दिलीप
think of him
सोमण
as
किंवा
an
कृष्ण
Ultraman,
प्रकाश जे IPS अधिकारी
because he
आहेत
doesn't fit into
त्यांनी
those
आतापर्यंत
categories of what
आयर्नमॅन
the people
अल्ट्रामॅन
have
केलं
done.
पण
So
कुठल्या
this is
सामान्य
something
माणसानं
not normal for
कॉमन
him, but this
माणसानं
will
या
also
गोष्टी
motivate
केलेल्या
a lot of
नाहीत
other
आणि
people
ते
like
मला
him
करून दाखवायचं
who are not that no, it's not just about richness, who are not on those categories, who are just normal people in India doing wage laboring and daily jobs, and they can also do something beautiful like this. They can also follow their passion.
Well, I'm certain that he will inspire many people, and probably not just in India. What an amazing story! I thank you guys for sharing that with me today. Listeners, if you want to see Abhay in his Milkman to Ironman YouTube video, please check the links in the show notes. Well, once again, guys, thank you both, and I look forward to meeting you in July.
So thank you so much. And we really enjoyed having this conversation with you, Abhay.
What happens on the road gets told at the awards banquet, and now those stories are being shared with you. It's time for another crew story. Today, you're going to hear from Matt Hill. He'll be speaking about Chad Bentley, who we heard in episode 1 describe his Epic 5 race. Here is the story from the crew side of that same race.
Hey there, Matt Hill, and the athlete that I had the absolute pleasure to crew for is my buddy, Mr. Chad Bentley. And I'll take you to the Aloha Islands, where he was on day 5 of the Epic 5, which is the 5 Ironmans in 5 days on 5 of the Hawaiian Islands. And here we were, day 5. He had been the piston, the Mr. Consistency, Mr. just getting it done, day after day after night after day after night after day. We're talking couple hours worth of sleep, at most points. I think at one point, his least amount of sleep at one point was maybe 25 minutes. He even fell asleep during the ride, he said, on the last part of the ride on day 5. So, figure that one out, right? Going down the King K Highway, or the Queen K Highway, sorry. And actually falling asleep and having a nap, in your tri-bars. I think that's pretty epic. But from the crew's perspective, this one particular moment to me just kind of solidified the whole amazing journey. So we were, like I said, the last day here, the last Ironman, the last marathon, and we were heading back towards town. We could smell the town of Kona, breezing in the distance. Middle of the night, we'd done the all-nighter, and, probably a couple hours from the finish. I'd had a pretty good system with my taller-than-I friend Chad with his nutrition. I just sort of, go alongside of him, and he just put his hand out, and I, hand it off to him. But on this one point, I thought, oh, the truck's up there. I'm going to get fancy. So, I run up, put the nutrition right on the front of the truck. And as I turn back to run back to get behind him, just to make sure he goes forward, he literally does a full side plant into the side of the truck. And I'm thinking holy shit, he's totally passed out. And so just as I'm about to like maybe, call a medic, he literally does this little kind of like hop, skip, and he kind of does a barrel roll right along the side of the whole truck, doesn't even skip a beat, does a little bit of a hip scop, right off the end of the truck, grabs the nutrition, keeps going forward, takes a big, huge sip. And then I'm like, dude, what happened? He goes, whoa, that was really weird. I think I saw a dinosaur back there. It kind of freaked me out. We're like, whoa, dinosaurs on? Well, okay, it is the Aloha Islands, it is Epic 5. We are about to finish, so, the rest of the night we just, oh my God, we just laughed so hard, about that moment, because it was really kind of like it was the antithesis of the whole experience. It was just, without sounding cheesy, I think I understand why they call it Epic 5 now, because it really is epic. It's something that I hope lots of people get to do, and especially say from our crew members' point of view, it's such a privilege to crew and also help somebody in their quest, to get through the finish lines.
Thank you for that, Matt. And if you have a crew story that you would like to share, please get in contact with me at 515ultraman@gmail.com, and I'll tell you how we can get your story on the air as well. So whether your story is a funny one, a serious one, or something in between, we want to hear them, especially if they embody the aloha, ohana, and kokua of the Ultraman races. Welcome back to part 3 of our conversation with Steve King. In this section, we're going to be talking to Steve about his day job, which is a clinical counselor, and he specializes in PTSD, addiction, depression, and anxiety. Now, it's probably no surprise to most of you out there that many athletes or people within the athletes' family are dealing with these issues, as many people throughout the regular population do. And one of the things I would like this podcast to be able to do is hopefully have a few open discussions with athletes that want to talk about their struggles or their strategies in dealing with mental health, and sharing those ideas, so that if there are other people out there who are struggling along those lines, that they can find some ideas about how to deal with it, and realize that they're not the only ones out there that are dealing with it, even though they're athletes of a high caliber, that even a high caliber an athlete can have a mental health issue that they want to deal with. If there are athletes looking for help, obviously they should seek a counselor in their own area. Yeah. But some people might want to check out your approaches, Steve, to how you look at these things. You've done a number of presentations in the field. You've also written some books. You have some courses online on, is it Udemy? Is that how you
Udemy,
say that?
Udemy. I've got even an Audible course now. They contacted me from England and asked if I'd do one for a thing called Listenable, for people who just want to use audio as opposed to watching video.
Oh, yeah. So maybe just give us a quick, where can we find that? Like, you've got some books and stuff. Where can we find those?
Well, the books
as well?
and the courses, you can go to my website. They're online there, and you can just click on to order those. But the best thing to do, if you check them out, they have a full price. But nearly every third or fourth day, it's about 10% of that price. And so just wait till they're about $14, $15 or something. Seriously, I think I've only had one person who paid full price, and everyone else, they wait. And I don't blame them. That's what I've done, because I've downloaded loads of courses myself. I think this is one of the great things we can do during the course of this pandemic. I've taken more courses last year, despite still working. I'm still working full time. I've just finished a course on schizophrenia, which I just finished last night. I did the exam. And I'm doing a new one on sleep right now as well, because lots of my clients have difficulty with sleep. And these are university. I took a course from Yale on addictions, which was right up to date, because they had all the latest medications they mentioned as well. And I'm very much involved with that aspect with a wonderful doctor here, Dr. Jeff Harris in Penticton, who's one of the leading authorities on that. So I've had the pleasure of working with him. So I've been very fortunate and gifted from many people's experiences. my clients are just wonderful people. The majority of them are very, very talented. They're just very sensitive and obviously susceptible because the world can be overwhelming at times.
And I think in my day job, I'm seeing that as well, with the anxiety levels rising through almost the entire population of young people today. My own personal thought is that it might be due to over loving parents a little bit, in that nowadays there always seems to be those parents that want to be those snowplow parents, or take away all the obstacles from the child's life because they don't want them to have to feel pain or deal with bad things. And it seems to me that most of the young people today, that because they don't get the opportunity to deal with that in little pieces along the way, that even the small things can shut them down. Is that something you might be seeing in your practice?
Yeah. Well,
does that sound like
you're right. Nowadays they would call that helicopter parenting and stuff, right? We have where kids are not allowed to overcome things or learn how to surf different things, so to speak, the day-to-day stuff. And so for them, it's like you can offend them by telling what is a perfectly normal joke, so to speak. And that's changed a lot. I know we live in a woke nation now in every sense of the word. I get that and I appreciate it and I'm happy with it. But we've still got to learn to have a good laugh. Because if you think of endorphins, there's only 3 ways basically to get them: and exercise, laughter, and acupuncture. So, let's have a lot more laughter.
And a lot more exercise.
Yes. But one of the things I do, I usually stay up at least till midnight. And the reason for that is not only am I a night person, but I like to go to bed after a good laugh. So 11:30, I'm watching the late night commentators, and I really appreciate that because it makes you feel much better than being dragged down by some of the stuff that's going on in the world.
Yeah, you don't want to be watching CNN before you go to sleep.
Although I'd rather be watching that than one of the others.
I think we'll have another break here, and then when we come back, we'll talk to you about one of your favorite pastimes, and that is music.
Awesome.
If you are enjoying my conversation with Steve as much as I did, then I have great news for you. He'll be back every episode with a short story of his choosing. In our next episode, Steve talks about the very first Ultraman race and gives us some details on the winners. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss even a single Steve King story. And now, back to the final segment of our conversation, where we talk about his love of music and his love for his life partner, Jean. And in between those two topics, he somehow weaves our entire 3-part conversation into a beautiful metaphor encompassing all of the topics we've spoken about. Done in a way only Steve King can.
It keeps me running till the twilight of day. It keeps me running, come what may. It keeps me running in the packer alone. It keeps me running, now I'm running in the zone. I bleed a foot, heavy and slow, but I'll never stop 'cause I've got a gun.
And that is Steve King performing with one of the bands he's played with, the Headband. And he's a great music lover like myself. You obviously play music. I don't play music, but I like to watch music and hear and listen to the great bands. So I'm wondering, can you share with us what exactly do you play? When did you start? And was it to get girls?
Well, I've had a drum set for quite a while. And so I play a bit of drums. I'm not the greatest, but I can keep a beat. I've got an acoustic guitar here. I've got a bass guitar, and I've got now a keyboard. Because one of the things with the pandemic, here I am. I'm presently 72 years of age. And for years and years, I've been saying, and I asked people this question. I was running a panel a couple of years ago at the Victoria Marathon, panel of incredible athletes, Olympians, etc. Evan Dunphy was one of them. And my last question to each of them was, if there's anything else you could be other than the talent you obviously have as an athlete, what would it be? And nearly all of them said playing a musical instrument or singing. And when I thought of this myself, you see, I have for years wished I could have learned the piano. So here we are in the pandemic, and I'm taking all these courses for my education, and I'm sitting there, and all these things keep coming up on Facebook about, learn the piano. And so I thought, I'm going to check one of them out. So just before Christmas, I actually pressed the button. So I've got a keyboard, and I'm sitting there learning scales at this time. That's what I'm doing, just going up and down scales, because I'm hoping that sometime I could get to play the piano. Even if I'm 95 and I could play one or two songs, it really would make me happy, because I do love music. I've got a sound system down here like you're in a nightclub. And there are times I can yank it up to the degree, we've got a very old house. So we've got these big rocks at a foundation that if our neighbors, and if I crank it right up, the neighbors can only hear a bit of bass. But it's like I'm back in a nightclub in London.
That's fantastic. So you're basically going to be a full band by getting the keyboard then. You got the drums, the bass, the guitar, and now
I'd love that
your
if it were
piano,
possible.
your keyboard.
Well, and Bill Head is the head of the headband, by the way. He's the one who sings and plays guitar on there. And so we did put out a CD. So that's the only thing we've really done. We played a number of gigs. But I also, years ago, wrote the Ironman song. And by the way, if anyone wants that, that is the Ironman Canada song. It is on my website. It's a free download. And we did an instrumental as well as the voice for that. And I'm hoping there's a guy who did Ultraman Canada that I am hoping is going to put an Ultraman song together. He and I discussed it. Bill Head and myself did one for the Peach Classic. We did one for a Texas triathlon as well for those guys. So it's neat if someone has an event and they want to put a song specifically for an event. You see, it's nice to be able to do that, because if you're an athlete or the organizer, you can think of the words or just write them out as poetry, get them to rhyme a bit, and get a chorus. It's not. Mm-hmm. I know it sounds easy, but it can be. It seriously can. If people can. Yeah, then it's neat to have a song that represents your event. That's the way I look at it. So that hopefully we'll have an Ultraman song soon.
And I guess being that sport is such a big part and music is a big part for you, that they tend to intertwine, and your influences when you're writing your own music, I guess, would be from there. The song that we played into the segment with Running in the Zone, I understand was inspired by some writing that you were doing.
Yes, we actually put a book together, myself and a guy called Dan Cumming, which was called Running in the Zone, and it was for senior athletes, basically. And so we had 26 contributors to that book. Sadly, Dan Cumming used to live in Summerland. He passed away just a year ago, and that was in Jamaica. He was there to do the Jamaica Marathon. He was 73 years of age. So sadly, we lost Dan, but his family keeps in touch, and they turn up at finish lines because, interestingly, their son-in-law and the grandson of Dan's are all triathletes as well. So it's a big circle, big
All
family.
keeps going around in the circle of life.
Exactly.
Yeah. So just as more of a personal question now is, what's some of your favorite musicians that you've seen live, and what are some that you haven't seen yet that you're disappointed about?
If there were one disappointment, it would be that I didn't see the Rolling Stones live. I missed an opportunity, and Penticton had Ringo Starr and his all-star band here a couple of years ago, and I had to be at a race. That was a huge disappointment as well. But I have seen so many, especially in the 60s and 70s in London. I used to be up at Wardour Street all the time. The Marquee Club, the Whiskey A Go-Go, a lot of those clubs. But the Marquee, we had an incredible number of people come through there. The Moody Blues are one of my favorite bands. Saw them perform there. The Who played there. So many. In fact, David Bowie, there was a David Bowie
anniversary weekend.
Well, David Bowie used to play with a group he called the Lower Third. We used to walk out after song number 2 or 3 and go to the pub while he was playing. It was that bad. And I say that with all due respect to David Bowie lovers. I really like his stuff now, so don't get me wrong. But in that phase of his musical career, it was folky, it was slow, it wasn't gelling well for anybody. And we used to see a band or come back. There used to be a band called The Action that were our favorites there. There was The Move. They were a big band at the time as well. So lots of great bands that I saw there. And I go to concerts when we can. We have a great facility now here at the Event Center that we've seen some great musicians. And we have the Dream Cafe here in Penticton, which we're hoping will get open again. We've seen some amazing musicians there. Men at Work, their lead singer has played there, Colin Hay. You're probably well aware of him. But I love anything from reggae. I like opera. I like everything in between. But you can go down the rabbit hole, and I found myself doing that just the other night. I heard something from Simply Red, and then I went on and just watched some stuff from him, and I thought, man, he's got a great voice. Then I saw a thing out there with 10cc doing live, and went to that. And I will often go to something that will just say, yeah, I wonder how that person sounds now. Dionne of Dionne on the Belmonts. He's got a brilliant, he's 80 years of age. He's come out with one of the best blues albums that you could imagine, and with all sorts of people that have contributed and worked with him. It's starting with Joe Bonamassa on the very first track, but there's some fabulous work that's being done out there by a whole host of artists. So I'm into anything. And the other night, UB40, I was watching them, and then I realized there was a song came out a couple of years ago, I Want You. Well, Ali Campbell is a singer, and he was the lead singer of UB40. So, you can go all over the place watching incredible artists. And then you've got people like Cat Stevens coming back and renewing some parts of his career, Look at Fleetwood Mac and what's happened there. A guy's on a long skateboard singing along, gets onto TikTok, and the next thing you know, that's blown up. So,
yeah, that's. I'm kind of looking forward to seeing all the great art that comes out from the COVID quarantines, not just in music, but in all forms. And it's starting to come out now, obviously, but I'm sure there'll be a lot more as well.
Yeah. Well, you can't get enough when you think of also people like John Lennon. I had the good fortune to meet him outside the Marquee Club. A Rolls Royce turns up and out steps John Lennon. He had a chauffeur at the time. And you go, wow, and what he contributed musically. And here we are. He and George Harrison, when you look at the concert with George, you look at Imagine and the songs, the Double Fantasy album, et cetera, these people, along with Eric Clapton and the greats that have gone before. And look at some of the young kids that are out there. People send me drumming videos of, 8-year-old girls playing against David Grohl in Foo Fighters. I love that stuff.
Yes.
It's just tremendous.
Yeah. Well, I guess as a drummer, we're just on the 1-year anniversary of the death of
Neil Peart.
Russia drummer.
Yeah, Neil
Peart. Yeah. I'm knowing your music stylings. I'm going to guess that you enjoy a little Rush.
I do, and what a great concert they had on HBO there for quite a while, the Time Machine one, and Neil Peart. To realize that man could take some of the songs he did and play note for note when he was all over that kit, all over it, and note for note, and you see the people in the audience who have been to so many of their concerts that they're doing the same thing.
Just playing the air band,
It's so incredible. And you see, this is why we have to realize how fortunate we are as well, that we have the gift of art. There's the visual art, there's performing arts, and we are so fortunate we live in a world where we can take these things in. And to me, a lot of my clients are artists. They're sensitive people that get affected by a world that at times seems overwhelming. And that takes us to athletics, where athletics can take you out away from that because it's a form of art in itself. And the race, like an Ultraman race, is a form of art. It's a canvas from the race director through to the crew, to the athlete, for the organizers, the volunteers, and the locations. It's like a traveling circus. So you have traveling shows in art shows, but to me, this is like a traveling circus as well. And it comes to fruition. And at the end of it, we're sitting back at awards and we're embracing what has just happened, and hopefully in a good way. And sometimes it's not a good way. There are people who have had great disappointments. But the wonderful thing is many of them come back. Mm-hmm. You know, stories like Scott McDermott, the Warrior Code, he's now had a film made about that, the documentary. You know, there's those types of things where people have had a really rough time, a major accident, Christian Isaacson along with Scott, you know, but they're coming back into the fold. So when you love the event and the sport as much as these people do, you're going to return year after year after year as much as you possibly can, or get connected, or even if you're sitting at home and you can't be there, you can provide possibly some advice or inspiration.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And that's obviously what this whole thing is about with the Ultra family once again. I guess I'll finish off with one last question for you, and that's more of a personal family one for you. And you touched on it earlier about how important your wife, Jean, has been to you. And I think that kind of runs through all the threads of the discussion we've had today, because she was obviously a part of supporting you as an athlete, because at times we know these ultra endurance athletes can be pretty selfish people and they need a lot of support. And I'm sure she was there to support you in your races. And then as a announcer, she's like side by side with you all the time. And she's like literally standing by your side as you've gone through your work career. I'm sure that she supports you and gives you that time and space and help along the way to get all of that in place. And then again, in your music, it's come out. You've actually dedicated a CD to Jean as well for one of her birthdays. Maybe just tell me, or more importantly, tell her what it means to you to have such a great partner to support you in all these different facets of your life.
Well, as you say that, you've made me realize, you know, sometimes we need to stop and sort of appreciate what that means. We've been together since 1974, got married in 77. And at that time, at the end of 74, I was planning, because that's why I came to Canada, I was going to go around the world on a shoestring. I barely had any money and I needed to work. But I met Jean and I said to her, basically, would you consider coming around the world with me? And we were going to backpack with no way of really, we didn't have a backup. Could you come to England with me first? We'll get a job, you'll meet my family, and we'll save up and then we'll begin our journey. And so we spent 3 years literally going around the world together, living out of DOS houses, cheapest accommodation you could imagine anywhere. We spent a month in Bali near the end of the trip, living in a losman for $2 a day, including breakfast. We were eating with Hare Krishnas in different places, wherever we could, seriously. And so you know that you could get along with someone when you've been under those circumstances. But when I started putting races together, Jean was the registrar. She did the timing. She looked after our club newsletter for years. She did the newsletter. When I started the magazine, she sent out all the subscriptions, kept all the addresses, kept all the business stuff going, you know, and Jean was never a sports person. I say that with all due respect, you know. She's very talented in many ways, but it wasn't something that appealed to her to get out there and run or do that. She does more now than she ever did then. She will get out to the gym 3 times a week and go up to the track now for a walk sort of thing. But she loves the people. She loves the engagement and really loves the athletes as well to see how they're going to perform. You know, we know how scary it is for many of them to be there for a first time, especially taking on a mega challenge like the Ultra. And so over the years, you know, and there have been times I've been rude to Jean. I acknowledge that. As partners, we can sometimes be rude to each other. Yes. And so we have to decompensate a little bit to sort of go, okay, what's going on? Okay. And so what I tell clients sometimes, and I have to remind myself, is over the years, what I need to be aware of, and I am very well aware of it, is Jean is also my very best friend as well as my partner and my wife. And so when you see someone that lens, it often changes the way you talk and treat them. And I can be a person who can have 3 or 4 things on the go at the same time. I can be talking to you, I can have music going on here, and my head is also doing something over here. Now, Jean doesn't think that way. And so she can get upset sometimes if I don't stop everything and sort of give her my full attention. But in a race situation, you can't do that. When you're commentating, I can't be stopping, starting, and trying to organize things. So sometimes I'm just pointing at something, and that doesn't seem too polite. But you see, in the context of what you're doing, you have to do what you do. So Jean and I had to work out those types of things. Or if I'm thirsty and I've been on the mic for hours and I say, could you get me a cup of tea? Well, Jean's not my servant, but at the same time, there may not be anyone else around to grab a cup of tea. Do you see what I mean? So sometimes those things have come into it, but we've always reconciled, and she is everything to me. And so I did write that one song for her as well that's on that CD, Thanks to You, My Wife. And the first song on that is Jean, which was a very well-known song. So I felt that was something very special for me to let her know how much she means to me. I revere her, to put it mildly.
Yeah, she's a wonderful, wonderful lady, and I think maybe we'll go out on that song as a way to pay tribute to how she supported you along the way as well.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Larry.
Sit alone and think of me when I'm gone and out of sight. It will never be for long. I'll be back to put things right. Whatever happens, you are mine. No rough words will make us part. That's the way I know we feel. You are always in my heart. Sit alone and think of me.
If you liked what you heard today, please tell a friend and be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. We'd appreciate it if you'd rate and review the show while you're there. Drop the names of the people you think we should interview, and we'll get in touch with them and make that happen. Thank you for listening to 515, the Ultraman Podcast, a production of 55 Enterprises, brought to you by Ultraman Canada.
I will be